It's all Summer League today. We'll hear from Bryce McGowens, the second-round pick from this year, and the Summer League head coach, Jordan Surenkamp, all today on Locked On Hornets.
We're Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Locked On Hornets is partnering with Arcade 1UP to give away 3 free NBA Jam Shaq machines. That's right. We're giving away 3 of them. These are the guys known for making the incredible retro 3/4 scale at-home arcade games like Pac-Man, Golden Tee, and many more. You can enter to win on arcade1up.com/lockedon. That's arcade1up.com/lockedon for your chance to win a Shaq edition. Summer League is here. We got probably the most exciting Summer League team play last night against the Utah Jazz. The Oklahoma City Thunder got to see Chet Holmgren, my boy Jalen Williams, who went 8 of 11 from the field. The other Jalen Williams played. Poku was throwing up shots left and right. They played the Jazz. Oklahoma City
Thunder
they ended up winning. Thunder, maybe. Is this the year where all of those picks actually manifest into some winning out on the court? And this is what we're going to have to ask with the Charlotte Hornets Summer League team. We'll get their first action tomorrow as they travel out to Vegas today. They will hold, I believe, their last media availability today as well.
Yeah, first game's Friday. First game's Friday.
Excuse me. Yep. So first game is Friday. They're going to be traveling out to Vegas this week. That is today, I believe. They're heading out there.
I'm very confused, but I'm glad that we've already got a correction for you, because I have a correction to make before we move forward. On yesterday's show, I think I insinuated that Steve Clifford would be the head coach out in Vegas. I read a press release wrong, although it's not my fault.
Well, no, Doug, it's not your fault. Nothing is your fault. It's going to be theirs. It's the Hornets' fault.
I agree with that, but this in particular was not my fault, because I got the press release, and under the roster, it says head coach Steve Clifford. Okay, maybe I stopped reading there and didn't read anything after that, okay? But under it, it said the head coach of the Summer League team is going to be Jordan Surenkamp, who is the head coach of the Greensboro Swarm. So, yes, I got it wrong. No, it was not my fault.
No, of course it wasn't your fault. I also like how you lead into that segment by saying, I insinuated that Steve Clifford is the head coach.
Yes.
It's just so deep within you. It's so deep within you to deflect any wrongdoing. You insinuated it, which, of course, leads us astray. Instead of just flat out saying Steve Clifford was the head coach. I alluded to it. I hinted at it. No, you flat out said it. But you can still blame the Charlotte Hornets if you want to. We will go ahead and go along with that, quote, unquote. Let's actually talk about the head coach of the Summer League team, Jordan Surenkamp. We'll do that later on. Third segment, we have some sound from him because he spoke to media yesterday, had some glowing reviews for one Mark Williams. But let's talk about Bryce.
I have some sound right now if you want it. He talked about, speaking of Steve Clifford, he may not be the head coach of the Summer League team, but he is very involved. He's on the ground right now in Charlotte, watching over things and commenting. And
I was there.
Yeah, so you saw him. You got eyes on him. Mm-hmm. Eagle eyes.
I do.
Awesome. Anyway, so Jordan was asked about Steve Clifford's role. Would you like to hear what he said about that?
Yeah, let's hear it. Let's hear Jordan Surenkamp, the real Summer League coach, talk about what Doug said was insinuating the Summer League coach.
Involved, and he's been here and evaluating and doing all that as well, which has been fantastic for the team and the coaches as well. He's really just preaching very basic things of competing, right? We're going to Vegas to win basketball games just as much as we already developed, right? So he's been here preaching the competition part of it, the organization part of it, playing the right way, right? Sharing the ball on offense, being there for your teammate defensively. Those are the pillars of which we're going to build this organization around in the foundation.
What? Did you hear that, Walker? Did you hear that word?
I heard the word.
Pillars. They are
heard
back.
The word.
Pillars. That's how my that's how my grandparents said pillows. Pillars. Hey, by the way, before we talk about this, that audio courtesy of Skylar Callahan from SI.com.
Yeah, appreciate that, Skylar, putting out some of those videos there. Did your grandparents also refer to the couch as the Davenport? Because that's what mine did. How old is that? So old.
Is referring to a Davenport also? That sounds highfalutin. That not only sounds old, that sounds a little first class to me. Ooh,
I don't think.
I'm going to go sit. Let's go sit on the Davenport.
I don't think anybody
Have a glass
is
of wine on the Davenport.
It might be highfalutin, but you're also not doing that under the age of 70. If you're over 70, then your couch is. Is it with a V or a B? I think it's Davenport. I think that's
V as in Victor, as in victory.
Davenport. Victor is in the Lone Ranger's nephew's horse. So Jordan Surenkamp talking about Steve Clifford being there. Got to see him, speaking with Mark Williams actually a couple of days ago when I was over at the Spectrum Center, kind of coaching him up through some of those drills, getting
this
to
is fun.
talk
This
with
is
him.
a fun segment of all of the things that Walker is. It's like I Spy. What
I Spy. Yeah. Well, I've got eyes down over there, man. I'm trying to make sure that we give the people what I know, which is nothing. It's really just seeing stuff. And so you can interpret however you want to. I'm just insinuating some of the stuff that I've seen so then you can kind of latch on to whatever you want to. It is nice to have Steve Clifford there. It would be a little questionable if he wasn't, to be honest with you. New coach, trying to get used to the new guys that you have on this team as much as you possibly can.
Hired
especially
late.
This late in the process, right? Yeah. And so it's nice that he's there. I don't know if there's a ton of credit, but also it's good to see Steve Clifford. Go ahead, Doug.
Well, what's interesting, Walker, is that Jordan Surenkamp is a holdover from the Borrego regime. He was currently the head coach of the Greensboro Swarm, but he's not the only holdover we know about. Nick Friedman, the much lauded player development coach, is also still on the staff along with Norm Richardson. And you said that you saw Jay Hernandez, right, at this last practice you went to.
I did. And I guess I don't know the outlook for some of these assistant coaches. I think Dutch Gailey, he's gone, right? So that's one guy that the Hornets have moved on from. And Jay Hernandez is somebody that's pretty praised here. I know that he had a really good relationship with Kemba Walker, I believe the lone season that they worked together once Jay Hernandez joined that James Borrego staff, and then obviously stuck around. A lot of people like Jay Hernandez, so I wanted him to stay on the staff, and I saw him a couple of days ago, and I spy there was Jay Hernandez. So hopefully, and I would assume that means that he's staying with the Charlotte Hornets at least for this year, and who knows about the following years after.
I think we'll probably hear some more announcements about staff. We did get a report from Jake Fisher. That's right, folks, we're going fishing. Oh, we got a big one.
Set the hook. Set the hook. We got it.
Jake Fisher reporting that Clifford was bringing on a few familiar names, at least to Clifford. Tyrone Corbin, who he worked with in Orlando, his last head coaching stint. And then Bob Byer, who some eagle-eyed or eagle-eared listeners / viewers may remember from the early Bobcats days. Bob Byer was on Clifford's staff. So he is adding a few new names. But Walker, I feel pretty confident in the reporting that was going on around the Kenny Atkinson hire, not hire, that there may have been some degree by the organization, some degree of wanting to keep player development staff and some of their staff that were under contract with a new coaching regime, and that seemed to be a problem with some of the candidates that they were interviewing.
Yeah, when we do the blame game, who gets blamed for the way that Kenny Atkinson
I love a good blame game.
Of course.
I blame press releases.
It's built, of course you do. It's built in the very fabric that is our job. We have to shed blame on something. It has to be somebody's fault as to why this happened, although I do believe that it has to be somebody's fault. I think a lot of it is Kenny Atkinson. The fact that he went through this entire process understanding that Golden State had a pretty good shot of actually winning the championship, that his family likes staying in the Bay Area, that if some of these rumors were true too, that James Borrego was fired the way he was, which apparently he said, apparently one of the reasons was the fact that, hey, he could have a good year, kind of like James Borrego winning over 40 games and still get fired. You knew that going into the process. And it's not like JB didn't get enough time. He got 4 seasons. So it's not like they have a quick decision-making process if they don't feel like you reached their expectations. All of that's true. I put a lot of that on Kenny Atkinson. The part where it does come onto the Charlotte Hornets is the whole, we need to keep these assistant coaches in line. We want to hold over some of these assistant coaches from the JB era, and also we don't want to pay them league average. That's the damning part on the Charlotte Hornets. But a lot of this is Kenny Atkinson. Some of it is the Charlotte Hornets, and it's really specifically to that assistant coaching thing.
Yeah, and all this is reported allegedly. We've now been careful enough with how this is, but that's what it looks like. It smells like that. And look, if you love a guy like Nick Friedman as an organization, you say, hey, Nick Friedman has been really responsible for the elevation of Cody Martin, who we just re-signed to a big deal, and Jalen McDaniels, who's going to be an important part of our organization next season. If you like that, then sell that to the new coach. Say, hey, we really like this particular, but that doesn't seem to. This seemed to be, hey, we've got multiple people that we want to keep, and if you're coming to a new coach and saying, hey, we just fired the old coach, but you got to keep all these assistants, like that is ridiculous. And if that's true, and it seems like it's true, I would put that definitely square on the organization.
I will say, yes, it would be silly to make it clear that we want Jay Hernandez and we want Nick Friedman a part of this organization still, and you have to keep them. At the same time, if we like those guys, if they've had clear roles in big-time player development, and it's only those two that the Hornets are saying we want to keep these guys a part of this regime, and everybody else is fair game, then how much of that is a part of Kenny Atkinson, right? Like that's where the reporting lacks some details, is exactly how many assistant coaches did the Hornets want to hold on to, and how much did Kenny Atkinson use that as an excuse? Because if it came out and said, well, they wanted to keep Nick Friedman and Jay Hernandez in place, and I just thought that was ridiculous, so I'm going to stay in Golden State. Like at that point, it's like, well, maybe we don't put a ton of blame on the Hornets. The league pay thing, that's inexcusable. Just pay league average at least. Value them, because then that looks bad if you want to keep multiple and pay them lower because you don't want to shed out the money, or shell out the money, I should say. But like, yeah, that's the interesting part. Well, we'll see exactly.
You shell out money, you shed cash.
You shed cap, and you don't want to shed the assistant coaches because you don't want to shell out any more money to those assistant coaches.
You got it.
Let's talk about Bryce McGowens and get some help from Richard Stamen coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast. We're going to talk about that second-round pick from Nebraska to see how, I guess, where he ranks in the intrigue list for some of the players that will be out there for Summer League, but also just what we think about Bryce McGowens and him being on that two-way contract. Not before we talk about arcade1up.com. Boom shakalaka. We have big news. It's the one, the only NBA Jam, and it's back. Arcade 1-Up is the leader in at-home retro arcade games. It's not only bringing the best game ever back, but they've made it bigger than ever with a, wait for it, Shaq Edition machine. You can jump clear across the court, you can set the ball on fire, and one of the first sports games ever to feature real and digitized NBA licensed teams. No fouls, no free throws, and no quarters required. Compete with friends and family through all new Wi-Fi leaderboards, making you more connected than ever. Pre-order now from arcade1up.com. That's arcade, the number 1, up.com for an estimated early September ship date. Arcade 1-Up is the place for fun. They've got even more classics like Golden Tee, Mortal Kombat, and many others starting at just $399. Check this out. They're also giving away an NBA Jam Shaq Edition to a Locked On listener. Enter for a chance to win a game console for your man cave at arcade1up.com/locked on. That's arcade, the number 1up.com/locked on. You've got till July 8th, just a couple of days, to enter to win NBA Jam Shaq Edition's console. Don't miss out. Enter today. Who are you going to play with? Here's that conversation from Richard Stamen coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast. Back with Richard Stamen, joining us to talk about the NBA draft, Jalen Duren trade, Mark Williams. You can find that in the previous segment that we did. We now need to talk about Bryce McGowens, somebody that we really didn't talk a ton about during the pre-draft process, Doug. He was going to be in that range in between 15, certainly 45, where the Hornets were originally slated to pick in the draft. But they move up 5 spots to go take Bryce McGowens out of Nebraska. When he was available, they felt like he was the guy worth trading up for. So, Richard, I ask you, what did you think about moving up 5 spots to go get him, getting rid of a future second-round pick? And overall, what should Hornets fans know about their new player?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Bryce McGowens. I actually really wanted him in Dallas. He went just a few picks after Dallas picked Jaden Hardy. I thought it was great value. He was somebody who I gave a very late first-round grade. Thought he could be a project. And for him, he doesn't really need to develop skills. Like, that's not something that's on his plate. He's somebody who you look at, he has the jump shot. He's a great athlete, really good ball handler, shifty in getting to the rim, strong first step, just crafty in general. I think he's got good foot speed on defense. You look at every raw tool, he checks the box. However, decision-making and just overall raw feel to the game is very prevalent. Like, he will pass up. I don't know if it was a Nebraska thing. Team wasn't that good. Some of the habits were, building that were just bad. He would just miss guys on the drive. That's really the stuff he has to work on, is just being a consistent decision maker more than anything else.
All right, so over under, we'll set it at, I guess just give us your percentage on the likelihood that he makes the roster if he's on the roster in 3 years, right? Like, is this because they have a bunch of young players? James Bouknight, who we had some unfortunate news come out on Wednesday about his injury, maybe even Tuesday night. But you do have James Bouknight, talked about Kai Jones, still have Mark Williams, right? You have some younger pieces in place that you're trying to develop. JT Thor, somebody I didn't even mention. McGowens plays different positions than some of those players, but what do you think the staying power is for Bryce McGowens in the NBA and maybe with the team that drafted him?
Yeah, I don't know if he's on the Hornets in 3 years, but he's definitely in the NBA in 3 years, just because of James Bouknight. It really depends on what happens with that. They're very similar players. So for me, I do think he's going to be somebody who pans out. Again, I had him first round grade.
Yeah.
It's just that raw ability, or that raw decision making is really what holds him back right now. Steve Clifford's not the best coach at developing young players. It scares me a little bit, but you look at the raw skill set, and I think that really does become something. At the worst, he's a good trade piece.
Well, we'll have to see what how the staff fills out, and see where player development factors into that. I think that's going to go a long way into giving people good feelings or bad feelings about this organization's continued focus on developing young players. But they moved up in the draft to get this guy, so it would seem to me that they would be somewhat focused on trying to bring him along. Like, they sacrificed something to move up to 40, and they worked him out. They obviously liked him, and I think Bryce even had some pre-indication as to where he was going to end up. So I think the feelings were strong on draft night for McGowens, and I'm looking at some of these sort of draft projections for him. And other than NBA Draft Room, I mean, ESPN had him going 29, Athletic had him going 22. This was from an article on June 14th, so not crazy old. Ringer had him going 22. SI Fan Nation had him going 21. Basketball News had him going number 32. So, I mean, is the raw sort of decision making that you're talking about there? Is that what you feel like dropped him that significantly from the 20 to possibly 30 range to 40?
Yeah, that's absolutely my guess. That, or if teams, just don't like his work ethic or something like that, if that came out in the middle of those interviews and pre-draft process, I could see that being an issue too. But I really think it's just that raw decision-making and just raw ability where he's not ready to impact a winning team for year one or year two. Teams maybe don't want to be patient. I mean, we see that a lot, and maybe Charlotte just found gold.
How do you see his fit next to LaMelo Ball if he were to work his way up in a season or two? What's his fit alongside LaMelo?
Yeah, 6'6" guard with a plus 3.5 wingspan, I think is a very good fit. You can never have enough size in a lineup like that. I think he's just an all-around offensive player where, he's not going to do anything special in terms of just a unique skill set, but just having a complete offensive player next to LaMelo Ball just seems like a really good fit overall. I mean, you play off ball too. So you have somebody who takes the pressure off on ball, being a little bit of a creator for both himself and others, assuming that, again, those decision-making, the finding the cutters and passers as they're open, not a second late. You hope that stuff develops, and then he can score too. And I think that's a great fit next to a star.
And he fell out of the first round. So he's got that chip. He's got that all-important chip on the old shoulder.
Doug, does he fall in the category of falling too far and then the Hornets taking a falling star, or does he fit? So he's in the chip category.
That category goes away. I'm just asking a question. That category goes away in the lottery. After the lottery, a second round, anything can happen. That's
Fair
not.
Enough.
but he's got that chip on his shoulder. I don't know if he has that dog in him, but he's got that chip on his shoulder.
Fair enough. Dogs and chips. That's what we look for in players that we draft here in Charlotte. A couple softball questions before we get you out of here regarding the NBA, Richard. What do you think was the most surprising thing to happen on NBA draft night?
There's a certain player I'm lower on than most. It's somebody who
give us the goods. Give us the goods.
We know the answer.
We know
he had him 70 on his board. He had him overseas playing in Latvia.
Doug, he's telling us Walker Kessler is not the guy he's bringing up. Give us the goods, Richard.
All right, stunner. I thought it was going to be Walker Kessler, who he had serving hamburgers at McDonald's, not playing for any, and certainly not going in the first round of the NBA draft.
Well, hold on. I want to explore that, because wouldn't that be the worst job ever for a 7'1" dude? Like, to be at the window serving ham. Like, you have to duck down. But at least the people in the car wouldn't have to get so close to the building, right? Like, you could reach out pretty far and then not have any damage done to the window or something like that. All right. Sorry, Richard. Go ahead. Who's the player? What's your take?
I have this player much lower. I don't want to say the final spot because, like, it's disrespectful probably, but I had Peyton Watson, just would not have drafted him. And him going first round at number 30, giving him a guaranteed contract, somebody who, from my research, he is this is going to sound so disrespectful. He is the worst statistical player in NCAA to get drafted this century. 3 points per game, 3 rebounds a game, 32% shooting, just absolutely terrible. The best case scenario is somehow everybody was right in saying, oh, it was such a bad situation that everything was deflated. The stats were just way overstated of how bad he was, and it was just overall the situation was bad. But I just don't think that's it. I don't buy him being a shooter. He is incredibly passive. He's a good defender. His best case is becoming like a bigger road person, and I don't know how likely that is. So that was a huge shock to me that he really went the first round.
If there was another round, let's say that the NBA was, I don't know, however many years ago, and there were more than 2 rounds, would you have drafted Peyton Watson if there was a third round of the NBA draft?
At the end of the draft. Yeah.
Okay. We got him drafted. That's all I cared about. All right. And the other softball question here, winners and losers. I guess, you think Peyton Watson, right? Loser here for sure. But who do you think was a winner and maybe another team you wanted to bring up as a loser?
Yeah, I'll just keep dunking on the Nuggets. I didn't like Christian Brown. I'm not a huge fan of him. That is probably his number 1 fit was Denver, but not a fan of him at 21, given some of the players on the board. I really liked what the Rockets did. I thought Jabari Smith and Tari Eason was a really good haul. I was shocked that they moved the pick for Wendell Moore to Minnesota. I can't remember who they got back. I think they got Ty Washington. They did get Ty. Yeah. They also got a traditional point guard, which they desperately need. I think they got a bunch of just complementary pieces to their current young core. So I like what they did.
All right, that's Richard Stayman. Follow him on Twitter at Mavs Draft until at least he changes it to Hornets Draft. We appreciate the Buzz City t-shirt. We appreciate you always for helping us with these NBA prospects, making us feel good about the Charlotte Hornets. I felt like that was a pretty positive evaluation, right? Like if you would consider them tier 1 winner, tier 2. Let's end on that question, Richard. Like where would you say they rank among all the other NBA teams and how they finished?
Love a good tier question.
What was that?
I said I love a good tier question.
They're the best. They're great.
I was a big fan of what they did. Okay. I liked the Mark Williams pick. I thought it was fine. I loved the Bryce McGowens pick, though. That was such a home run of a pick. And also, there's a very good chance that they have two first-round picks in the stacked 2023 class. Like, just to give some context of why it's so stacked, like the recruiting class, I mean, it's a very simple overview, but the recruiting class is ridiculous. We have 2 pros already that are head and shoulders above every prospect in the class right now. And Scoot Henderson, who's in the G League, he's approaching his 2nd year there. And Victor Wembanyama over in France, who is 7'4", can create his own shot, defend, pass. It's ridiculous.
It's Rick Smits with handles. It's stupid.
In mobility. Like, it's nuts. And that's the headliners of the class. But then you go down the list and it's like, okay, this guy probably, like, you look at Nick Smith or Derek Whitehead, those 2 guys probably could have gone number 1 in this class. And obviously it's easy to say all that high school, but I really just do think they knocked it out of the park with getting more future talent and getting good immediate talent.
we needed some positive evaluation for the Hornets and what they did on draft night. Richard Stamen provided that for us. Richard, thank you so much. We always appreciate the time. Hopefully you have some time to settle down as we are post-draft going into the offseason.
Take a
Thanks
nap,
again.
Richard.
Appreciate you. Thanks again to Richard Stamen. A little bit more tame of a segment there compared to the last time. Doug did not intervene. Doug did not ask him about Air Bud compared to anybody else that was a fictional basketball player. And so we got some excellent analysis on Bryce McGowens. Coming up next, we're going to give you our analysis on Bryce McGowens, talk about some of the comments that he had in yesterday's media availability. Also discuss just the mix between veterans, quote unquote, like second-year players, and some of the rookies on what you could see in Vegas come Summer League. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. You can find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's Major League Baseball regular season. I finally nailed it. I did not go Ron Burgundy there. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sport wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. And BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. BetOnline.net is the fastest and the easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, and golf. You can head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action. Bet online, where the game starts. More Summer League conversation coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast. Awesome stuff from Richard Stamen, actually a fan of what Mitch Kupchak did in the second round. Doug, we know that Mitch Kupchak does have a good track record. Would you say it's like the best thing that he's done for this organization so far? The way that he's handled second-round picks?
Well,
maybe even a cute. Yeah.
He's filled the coffers. I think that's important. Drafting well in the second round can be a huge benefit for your organization because you don't constantly have to depend on, for those role players, you don't constantly have to go out and overpay for that kind of talent to put together the roster. Now, if they would use those savings, all I'm asking is to use those savings and go back and reinvest it into bringing maybe a few more A-list or B-list players. So you cannot fault his ability to bring in second-round talent and turn them into actual rotation players.
Well, and first-round picks have been good based on the talent alone, right? Like we can go to, yes, James Wiseman could have been that pick had he fallen, but they took LaMelo Ball, who was there, and there was some questions a little bit as to maybe they could take somebody else. PJ Washington, an excellent pick. Miles Bridges, not necessarily worth talking about based off that right now, but when we talk about first-round picks, just the draft in general, Mitch Kupchak has done a good job. I think I give more credit to the second-round hit rate because it's so hard, because of the fact that so many other NBA teams will use their second-round picks on guys that never pan out. You have these players getting to their second contracts, like Devontae Graham, who's worth a first-round pick in a trade and worth double-digit $1 million annually. Cody Martin just signed for $32 million total. Jalen McDaniels, an easy pickup team option, and is going to make some money. He's going to be on an NBA team and contribute next year. He is a part of a rotation. That's really hard for some of these second-round picks to be a part of a rotation like that. Bryce McGowens is going to be next on the list of guys that could be a part of, a second-round contract, right? A second contract out of being a second-round pick that actually gives you quite a bit of money. Here's Jordan Surenkamp, the Summer League head coach, talking about Bryce McGowens and maybe what he can bring to the team, maybe even just in this little 5-game stint they're about to play.
His natural ability to score on the open floor is really impressive. His length defensively causes problems, for offenses. So I think those are things that stick out. He was able to score the ball at a high level in college, and I think that's something he'll naturally be able to do here as well. I think the next step for him and something we're continuing to work on is his ability to play make, right? Handling the pick and roll, come off of DHOs, with his size and length and a natural ability to score the basketball. I think that's the next layer for him. And it's something that as we continue to go through practice and watch film and play these games, we'll ask him to do. And he's bought into doing that. So, his understanding of when to play make, when to create for himself, and then obviously his tenacity and focus defensively is important as well.
Does some things that match up well playing alongside LaMelo. One, the size is good. Just being 6'7" and having 2 6'7" guys, if you have your hands up, it's going to be tough for passing lanes to open up for the opposing offense. He's great at getting to the rim. He's a really good finisher. And I think that matters, especially with LaMelo, who, if you were to talk about his weaknesses, he's not the best driver as when it pertains to scoring himself or finishing himself. Bryce McGowens, kind of the exact opposite of that. Really crafty, but also explosive. Also kind of strong. Like, he welcomes the contact. He'll finish with some physicality, which is really nice. He's not huge. He's more so the wiry. He's more so the kicker from the replacements. He's wiry enough to finish down there. And I like all of that. Plus, he converts those shot attempts into fouls. Got to the foul line a lot at Nebraska and can hit those free throws. All of those things mesh really well paired alongside a LaMelo. The question is he going to play at all beside LaMelo? Because he's a second-round pick on a two-way contract, and there are going to be other backcourt mates like Terry Rozier, obviously, as long as he's not traded. But James Bouknight, we have to try to still figure out. Cody Martin certainly can play in the backcourt. And defensively, there's not anybody that passes him that's on this roster as currently constructed. So it's going to be hard for him to get there, Doug. But in a hypothetical world where Bryce McGowens does play alongside LaMelo, the fit pretty easy to see.
Bryce McGowens is a really exciting offensive player, but he is a bit of a project as an all-around rotation piece. So while I don't expect to see him much in the regular season, I think Bryce McGowens is like the perfect summer league breakout player. He has all of that potential. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if after Summer League, we're talking more about Bryce McGowens than we are about Mark Williams. Why do I say that? It really has, because I think Mark Williams actually is the player that you're going to see in the rotation the soonest, making the most impact in the regular season next season. But because the Hornets don't have they don't have James Bouknight. He's injured. He's not going to play in Summer League. They don't have a real crop of point guards that can come in and make a bunch of plays. You just heard Surenkamp there say they're looking for him to make more plays. I think this is really set up for Bryce McGowens to handle the ball a lot, to score a lot, to make a lot. And I think he's going to be the one player we go, wow, that Bryce McGowens, more like.
Oh no, I love them. I love those types of games, and yet that one still made me cringe a little bit. But I think you're right, and plus, it's just harder for Mark Williams to really give you that wow factor. I mean, he can dunk it, he'll roll to the basket. There's going to be some fun alley oops there, but as far as the self creation, it's going to be a lot easier to see. It's not going to be fun
because he's not going to be handling the ball. He's not going to be driving. Really, what you're looking for out of him is not, I don't think we're looking for Mark Williams' wow factor. We're looking for Mark Williams, can you stay on the floor factor. We're going to see, what
not
really
quite
is
the
his
same
ability.
Ring to it, but I think you're right still in describing the factor that way.
Yeah. Can he stay on the floor? Can he guard in space? How does he deal with the pick and roll on defense? Those are the kind of things. How do they use him? I mean, I think that's really interesting. How is, Clifford is coming in and reshaping the offense somewhat and reshaping the defense somewhat. How does that affect, we'll get a good look at, do they play Mark Williams exclusively in drop coverage, or do they allow him to switch a little bit? I mean, I think all of that's really interesting, but Bryce McGowens is the player that really, I think, has the most potential on this team to give you the wow factor.
And no James Bouknight playing in Summer League. So McGowan's going to have his shot. Scotty Lewis also, and maybe another name to watch for because he's athletic too. And so Scotty Lewis will be interesting as well. How do you balance that? Veterans, which is kind of what Scotty Lewis is in the Summer League world, the second, third-year players that are getting there. And how do you balance the minutes between those guys still fighting for an opportunity compared to a second-round pick from this year, a first-round pick from this year, the rookies that you just signed? Here's Jordan Surenkamp talking about just that.
I'm going to have conversations with the front office and Coach Clifford and staff about as well. And that's something that we're just going to have to navigate as we go. At this point, there's no set rotation in, but, there's obviously guys that are going to need to get reps and opportunities. So how we piece those together and how it plays out, is still something that we're working through.
I think the big man rotation is something to pay attention to there first and foremost. I mean, the backcourt, I think you can give those guys, you can give the right players the minutes that you want to, right? I think when you talk about front court, though, Nick Richards, Kai Jones, where is Kai playing? 4 and 5. Kai said he's playing more 4 in practice. We'll see if that bears out in Summer League. And Mark Williams, all of those players, exactly how is Jordan Surenkamp handling the big guys on this team? I think that's certainly the rotation piece to look for.
Surenkamp mentioned that they are playing Kai more at the 4 because they've got some depth at that 5 position, confirming what I think we suspected in that last episode, which is not that Kai is necessarily more comfortable at the 4 or that his future is at the 4, but that just this particular situation has him more at the 4. Here's the thing. If Nick Richards starts over Mark Williams, we're doing something wrong. In my opinion, if Bryce McGowens isn't starting over Scotty Lewis or starting alongside Scotty Lewis, then we're doing something wrong. Like Bryce McGowens needs to be in the starting lineup. Look, last year they didn't play the rookies enough in the regular season, but don't let that mistake sort of spiral into, making you feel like you need to play some of these returning players more in Summer League to get a good look at them. No. Like, I think you use Summer League to see what you have, what you just drafted, the thing that's most mysterious. You have some tape on Scotty Lewis. You got some tape on Kai Jones. That's fine. Like, they're going to get minutes. They're going to get play. But I really want to see big minutes for Mark Williams. I really want to see big minutes for McGowens. That's what I'm focused on.
Yeah, Scotty Lewis, I guess I agree with you more so. I wonder if how much it matters that somebody's starting. I think Jalen Williams, for instance, did not start last night for Oklahoma City and still led the team in minutes. I think I have that right.
You are obsessed. This is Shea all over again. You are obsessed.
It's a problem. It's a problem.
Yes, it is a problem.
And now they're playing on the same team.
You need to see someone about this.
I just was trying to make a point. He didn't start, but he played the most minutes. Now, if that took place with a Bryce McGowens, then I think we'd be okay with that, right? If he played all of those minutes without actually being, out there for the first 5, I think we would be okay with that. Speaking of Mark Williams, at least, we're talking about him being a rookie, getting some more of those minutes at a spot they feel like they're at least deep at in Summer League. Not regular season, but at least deep at in Summer League. What is Jordan Surenkamp going to look for out of Mark Williams? Here's what he had to say just yesterday.
He's able to pick up on things. He had the deer in the headlight look a little bit on day 1, as most rookies do. When you have such a short period of time to install offensive concepts and actions and then go through an entire defensive philosophy, it's a lot for, a young kid. So his ability to pick up on things very quickly has been really fantastic. He asks questions. He has the right attitude about all of that stuff. He's not afraid to make mistakes, and that's how you learn and that's how you grow, and he's done that to this point. And then ultimately, he embraces all of the pillars that we want within this organization. He competes every single day. He plays, selfless basketball. He pours himself into others, and is really a big piece to, trying to make this organization or continue to make this organization a winning program.
Pillars!
Is Steve Clifford going to go with the pillars mantra? I thought that left with James Borrego.
It's in the contract. He has to keep. They put it in his contract. Look, we've got team options first 2 years, and you have to keep every single one of the pillars. We paid for the pillars. You've got to keep the pillars.
That was Surenkamp talking about Mark Williams and what he does well, picking stuff up, at least asking the right kind of questions, and a glowing review on Mark. So we'll see if that can carry over to Summer League. And I am excited, right? I'm never crazy excited to watch defense in Summer League. I mean, you want to see him cover a lot of ground, right? You want to make sure that that's there, but we're going to have to be paying attention to Mark Williams on that side of the court as much as anything, watching him specifically.
Well, hey, defense, it's not as if defense goes unnoticed in Summer League. Remember, last Summer League, it was Davion Mitchell playing for the Sacramento Kings, locking up James Bouknight on defense, and that caught a lot of people's attention. So it's not as if Mark Williams I give Bryce McGowens I would say a slight edge of coming out of this thing with the wow factor. But that's not to say Mark Williams has no shot. I mean, if he's out there blocking shots all over the place and just commanding the interior, for Hornets fans, I don't know if it'll capture the national attention, but for Hornets fans, we're going to be losing our minds if that happens because we've been sorely missing that for so many years. I'll just say this, like if Mark Williams goes out and dominates the paint defensively, when I lay my head down on the pillar at night, I'm going to sleep good.
Yeah, same here. Thanks for joining us once again on Locked On Hornets. I'll be thinking about the pillars all day long and all Summer League long. First game is going to take place on Friday. Jordan Surenkamp going to lead those guys. Hopefully they develop, and you might have to call on them this regular season. Now, thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you make your second listen Locked On NBA. 30-minute daily update over at Locked On NBA with a revolving door of hosts. So make sure, again, you check it out on the Locked On Podcast Network. Have a great day, and we'll be back with you tomorrow.